Welcome to CosmoFactory, a podcast by Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna, where we explore the entire cosmetics, personal care, and fragrance industry supply chain. I'm your host, Deanna Utrusky, and here at CosmoFactory, we look beyond the trends to discover the ideas, initiatives, and innovations that are truly advancing beauty. Let's get started. This episode is about new media and digital advertising. It's about consumer engagement and consumer education. It's about demographic data and the creative ways that brands today are turning experiential content into retail touchpoints. Vacante, VP of Solution Innovation at Dentsu, is my guest today on the CosmoFactory podcast. Welcome, Val.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
No, I'm glad to have the chance to speak with you. Before we started recording, you had explained to me that Dentsu has over 70,000 employees across, I believe you said, 145 countries. But even though Dentsu is one of the largest ad agencies in the world by revenue, for sure, and certainly in terms of reach there, perhaps as well, not all of our listeners will know much about the company. So just so we have a point of reference for the interview, will you tell us about Dentsu?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about the story of Dentsu because Dentsu has a rich history. Dentsu has been around over 120 years. I mean, that is incredible. And we really have innovation at our core. We are highly dedicated to exploring new technologies, creativity, new methods to really engage and build those connections with audiences. And then really from a kind of offering standpoint, we offer up those end-to-end experiences. So think about, transformation to your business, integrating services across media, customer experience management, and also creative and creativity to help brands transform their business.
Yeah, and your specialty is solution innovation. Will you tell us more about what that means? What are you responsible for in this role?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my role, I am so fortunate that my role is all about creating new products, productized services, and really diving in and helping our clients uncover that white space, uncover those opportunities that otherwise would not have been realized, and really helping them, innovating to impact and grow their business.
Very good. I think that will bring some perspective to our conversation. Thank you for that. So one of the technologies that I know you work with is called intelligent messaging tech, which I believe uses AI to personalize consumer connections. That's, I think, a very sort of umbrella description. But help us understand how beauty brands, excuse me, are using intelligent messaging.
Yeah, and Deanna, you said it beautifully. Intelligent messaging is all about accelerating those one-to-one conversations, and we do it with AI-powered assistance, and we also say human connection, right? We want to make sure there is that human insight and human component to it. When it comes to the sort of beauty or acne care space, I'm really excited to share. We actually just showed at CES recently, the Consumer Electronics Show, our latest exploration with Galderma's acne care brand, Different.
Mhm.
Um, and just to give some context here, there's over 50 million Americans who suffer from acne every year. There's 85% of people in that group that are aged 12 to 24 that suffer from acne. 90% of those are gamers. Okay. And on top of that, there's a huge amount of overwhelm when acne sufferers go into the store. I don't know if I'm sure you have, but I don't know if you've been down the sort of acne care or skincare aisle, but it is super overwhelming. It's like, and if you're an acne sufferer, you really don't know where to start. So we wanted to alleviate that with intelligent messaging. So what we did is we actually created a shelf talker. So kind of get that attention on the shelf. And then basically you can scan the shelf talker to launch a one-to-one experience. And we call that kind of a connected concierge experience, right?
Okay.
To help guide the customer. So again, you scan the shelf talker, a one-to-one experience launches, and you can ask questions like, "Hey, can you tell me about cleanser?" And what's the difference between a 10% benzoyl peroxide cleanser and a 5%? Or can you tell me more about these power patches? Or spot treatment, right? And so really getting that, in a sense of overwhelm, helping guide customers and giving them that on the spot advice from the shelf. And so that alone we're really excited about,
Sure.
but yeah, where we get even more excited about is our latest initiative too. And that's where when customers buy different from any retailer, so I think that's a really exciting part, right? We're not making it exclusive or you have to go to a certain place. We're making it accessible to any retailer who buys any different product from the shelf or even online. They can actually go to a website, treatacne.com, and they scan the receipt of the product they bought, and they're actually able to receive a power-up in a select Roblox game, that has a skincare, education, tons of fun. There's a blaster with foaming face cleanser. There's a zit zapper, educating on spot treatment. And of course, the power patches, sort of a time game. Now, I will say it's not out yet. It is
Okay.
launching in Q1. But yeah, we are very excited about, again, having that connected concierge experience, rewarding people. And like I mentioned, 90% of people in that acne sufferer category are gamers. So we really
Yeah.
want to live where they live and also reward them too.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'll definitely ask you more about the gaming opportunity in just a moment. I want to stick with this idea of intelligent messaging just a little bit longer, simply because, when I hear the word messaging and I'm thinking about technology, my mind goes to, I might get a digital message, a DM, right? A direct message rather, on Instagram, or I might get a text message, right? Even, there are plenty of brands using text messaging. But what you're talking about is more of like an in-browser or in-app conversational experience that the consumer can access on their phone at the store shelf, maybe also by engaging with the packaging. Maybe there's a QR code or something. It's a different sort of messaging. It's more like you mentioned the word concierge, but it's more like when you sort of click to chat on a website and then you're having a text-based conversation with someone at the brand. Is that more accurate?
It is more accurate. And just to kind of to build on that, what we get excited about intelligent messaging is that um, we work with some of the world's, most renowned technology partners and also up and coming startups. And what that means is that we're able to work with a brand, like the right platform, the right solution. So if, for example, if they're already using a CRM stack, maybe they're in Salesforce, maybe they're using Adobe, we can create an experience that integrates into their CRM.
Hmm.
To your point, what you said about just kind of like scanning on the shelf, or is it an app or a web-based experience? The good news is we can create any of those. So in some cases, right, in some cases, it's just a web-based experience like we talked about with different. In another case, it might be launching from a specific ad unit on Meta's platform and
Hmm.
going through.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I imagine the messaging, the information, the conversation, whether it's product recommendations, I imagine all that's quite agile since it is a digital activation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we get excited about. I think oftentimes there's a fear of testing out new technologies or new platforms or experiences. And so we really try and work with brands to say, like, it's not about the tech. but it's about the experience we're trying to create. So is it all about helping customers, by creating a product finder, or is it about helping them find, information in a more useful way?
Yeah, excellent. And you mentioned this branded experiential content then being within gaming platforms as well. Tell us more about that. Maybe some of the data and KPIs involved, or ways that gamers and consumers are engaging in that space.
Yeah, definitely. So similarly, with the brands we work with, we don't want data for data's sake. We do want to be mindful of all of the right, how we're collecting data and why and where and compliance and everything else. Now, when it comes to intelligent messaging, again, depending on the goals, right? So you touched on it beautifully earlier with the website. If it's integrated into a website, you can look at things like traffic. You can look at things like numbers of conversation, and even like how helpful, was the advice. Like, did the customer get the information they need, kind of thing. And then when it comes to in-game experiences, we're looking at active gamers, active participants, who might be going to the place. And then in the case of the different example I shared with you, right, we're looking at things like, how many receipts were scanned, how many power-ups were given. And we actually, one of the things I didn't touch on with that different experience, it's not just about scanning the receipt, but we also reward people for completing that acne skincare games. So just by like kind of going through that education, they're also rewarded. So like basically no purchase is necessary, right? So just to to be clear about that. And then but we also added a layer of reward. So the more you play, the more you earn. And
Yes.
the last time, or sorry, not the last time, but on their fifth visit, they have a chance to win a UGC. So just a custom item, a limited exclusive item. So that's another way. And all of that is tracked, right? So again, number of power-ups, number of UGC or custom items that people are getting. And then we're also, just looking at number of visits and in the different games. So we're actually going to be across 5 different games. So just kind of looking at how that looks across each game.
Yeah, very exciting. So you're definitely reaching consumers who are gamers. They have the opportunity to sort of play and be educated and earn something within the game, keep earning, but then also use the receipt or proof of purchase, from any platform, as you've said, then to enhance their gaming experience, or be rewarded back in the game. I think that's quite interesting. Um, I'm curious, and I'm not sure if you're going to know the answer here, but is there a precedent, right, of gamers wanting to showcase their skincare routine in any way? Where you mentioned adding, user-generated content, these things we might call limiteds, right, within a game, from a skincare brand to their avatar's outfit or appearance. Some people are shy about skincare or personal care. I'm thinking, like, is this something that people are ready to show off to their friends and fellow gamers? Do you have any precedent here?
So I love this question. Okay, I love this question because like when we were going through the design process, right? We were really being mindful of that. So exactly. And I personally, a long time ago, I will say, but I was an acne sufferer, and like working on this brought back all of those emotions.
Hmm.
And so to your question, we don't want people to go around with a bunch of blemishes. It's quite the opposite, right? And so when we look at the UGC that we developed, it's actually a very cool aura. So a very sparkly aura that you can shine. You'll be seen, but in a sparkly sort of way, right? And something auras are very popular in Roblox also.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they'll be able to express themselves, but in maybe a little a way beyond real life.
Exactly. And like I was referring to it at CES as like their forever wear item, right? So
Mhm.
they'll always have it and they can always kind of, they want to put some sparkle on. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I love it. Um, I'm curious, these ad services that you're describing, do they make sense to reach every consumer demographic, or are there particular demographics of consumers where this really makes more sense?
That's a really good question. With that, the answer is yes and all, I guess we would say. And what I mean by that is it's really working with the brand, right? And seeing what is the challenge or opportunity, for example, right? So for example, in the US here, there's over 100 million people who are on WhatsApp,
Mhm.
right? And 40 million of those are US Hispanic. And 95% of US Hispanic are also on WhatsApp. So, right, you see a big opportunity there. Now, does that mean every single brand needs to do that? Probably not, right? But we want to look at the brands, bearing that in mind, and then also seeing perhaps it could be maybe there's an opportunity with product education and also helping provide a guided selling experience in the language of their choice. So we actually just showcased some of that at CES. Where you could actually go through the experience in Spanish or in English. And again, just another way to really connect with consumers in their language of choice and how they feel most comfortable.
No, that's interesting to think about. Thank you. Many of the Cosmo Factory listeners are involved with the beauty industry supply chain, a little less on the brand side for some of our listeners. They might be curious to know if these technologies are also being used in the business to business sector. Can you say anything about that?
Yes, I can. And I'm so excited about the opportunity here for B2B. So there's a number of ways that B2B brands can get involved in intelligent messaging. For example, if there's a tech company who invest in a lot of thought leadership or events. And I'm saying tech company, it could be a packaging company, it could be, um, that sort of thing. But basically, if they're investing in a lot of thought leadership or series of events or anything like that, intelligent messaging is a great way to help leverage that thought leadership, right? So think about a company who's invested a lot in white papers or case studies, and even their website, right, with like featured thought leaders or partners or anything like that.
Mhm.
We can actually take that information that's on their website and serve it up in a one-to-one way, right? So if you're going to a particular, again, I'm saying packaging website and want to know what activities they're doing, or hey, can you tell me the latest case study? Again, we can serve it up in that conversational way and they can boom, click that case study on the spot. So just really adding value to a lot of that investment. And yeah, so those like that's one example. And then another one I'll actually highlight really quickly is more for like franchises,
Uh-huh.
or if you have different could be franchises or in working across multiple markets. So to provide consistency, right? So if you think about it, it's like, hey, here's the sort of um, new in-store setup, or here's the different guidelines, and then that way people, if maybe they're not sure, boom, on the spot they can kind of ask the question and not go through a bunch of hassle and get that information to build that consistency.
And one sort of, I think, supply chain piece of consistency is when manufacturers are producing the same product at multiple plants around the world, right? So maybe, needing to share ingredient, quality standards or something that need to be met at each facility or something. I'm dreaming that up in real time, but I think part of your job is the creativity piece. So I imagine you sort of put that together with each client so it makes sense for their, needs and applications.
Absolutely. And we'll generally try and start, in one case and let let's test that out. I kind of call it a now, near, next approach. Like, what can we do to have sort of a proof of concept just to get everybody on board, see how they feel about this type of thing. The near might be actually implementing it, integrating it into their business. And the next, of course, how can we evolve it or look at other opportunities across the business or portfolio?
Yeah, yeah. And, I know with newer technologies, we're always, trying to be mindful and looking to establish best practices, quickly and effectively. I'm wondering if you can share any insights there into best practices with these sorts of new media advertising tools.
Yes, definitely. So when we start there, it's really all about putting that consumer first. Now, whether from a B2B standpoint, that's who's working in the manufacturing facility, or if it's a brand, as I mentioned earlier, the Acne Suffer in the store. Really starting with that consumer first approach, and then looking at that kind of lightweight, as I mentioned, kind of starting out with that POC concept, that proof of concept. What's something lightweight and easy to implement that might address that? And that doesn't mean we have to do a full blown out build or, anything like that. It might be something just with a clickable sort of prototype, just to see how it feels. And then I think from there, it's really getting that test and learn approach. Just again, to get everybody on board. Are we, is this the real problem to solve? And kind of build from there. And I think that's where we've had a lot of success. Just kind of, again, bringing it along together.
Yes, yes. No, well, that answer makes excellent sense. And I have to say, I thank you, Val, for helping us explore this topic today and for being a guest here on the CosmoFactory podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening. If you find the CosmoFactory podcast useful, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review.